Hello, and welcome to the notes for today where we are going to be determining the graphs of linear inequalities. Okay, so number one, I'm just gonna ignore the question. Let's talk about what kind of lines we have when we graph inequalities. So the kind of lines that we have are solid lines and dashed lines. We also have to shade for inequalities, and I'll show you that in a moment. But first, let's talk about the possibilities of a dashed line. So whenever we have a y that's greater than, sorry, I don't know if you can hear the bell, but it's ringing pretty loud. Okay, there we go. Whenever we have y is greater than or y is less than, we have a dashed line. So when we graph it on an xy plane, we graph it instead of a solid line, it's kind of dashed. And I'll show you what that looks like soon. If we have y is greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to, we have a solid line. Now this is how I remember it, okay? Ready? If my inequality symbol has a solid line underneath it, then we draw a solid line. And vice versa. If I see a solid line of a graphed inequality, then I know that my inequality will have a symbol with an or equal to, with a solid line underneath it. Okay, now let's graph the inequality that it has for us. Y is greater than 4x minus 6. I'm going to rewrite it right here. Y is greater than 4x minus 6. Okay, we start graphing this like a normal line, which means at -6, we're going to put a little dot because that's our y-intercept. Our slope is 4, but let me remind you that a whole number is actually a whole number over 1. So our slope is positive, so up 4, and then to the right 1. So our dot ends up right here. Oh, I think I need to turn down the sensitivity on my laptop. It's being a little sensitive today. Give me a moment to redraw that dot. Up 4 to the right 1. Okay, now, what I meant by dashed is this. So this is going to be a dashed line because our inequality symbol doesn't have a solid line. Dashed looks like this. Instead of drawing a nice straight line, we're doing a straight line but made out of little dashes. Why are we not? There we go. Beautiful. There's one other thing left to do. It's to shade. Now, y is greater than, which means bigger than. Bigger means up. So, I'm going to put a dot on my y-intercept and draw an arrow going up because that's greater than. The arrow is telling me exactly where to shade. So this symbol right here told us two things. It told us dashed, and because it's greater, it means shade up. And that's all. So let's take a look at these 4 inequalities and these graphs, and let's match them. So it looks like all 4 of these inequalities are the same line. We just need to match them. So they all have different symbols. So I think I'll just zoom in and we'll pick the symbols. Whichever one is left over is the one we'll graph ourselves. Okay, letter A. Now I see that it has a dashed line, so that means we are not going to have a solid line under our symbol. Okay. To find out if it's greater than or less than, we put a dot on our y-intercept and we draw an arrow either going up or down towards the shaded area. In this case, we go up to the shaded area. So y is greater than. Right, letter B, same idea. Now the first thing I want to look at is the line. Is it solid or dashed? Well, in this case, it looks like it's solid. If we have a solid line, that means our symbol will also have a solid line. Okay, now put a dot on the y-intercept. Oops, if it lets me draw, please let me draw. There we go. And let's draw an arrow pointing towards the shaded area. It looks like this time our arrow is going down. Down is less. Whoops, what is going on? There we go. Y is less than or equal to. Letter C. Okay, I have a dotted line, a dashed line. That means my symbol won't have a solid line underneath it. Cool. Now let's decide whether it's greater than or less than. Let's put a dot on our y-intercept and point an arrow towards the shaded area. Down. Y is less than. I don't know why I'm having such trouble drawing today. There we go. Okay. So that means we've used everything except for this inequality. So this is what we'll graph. I'm going to rewrite it right here so I could zoom into it. Okay. All right, so first things first, our y-intercept is at -3. So here's our dot at -3. Our slope is 1/2. It's positive, which means up 1, to the right 2. Okay, now let's think about the line and shading. It's all about this symbol. The symbol has a solid line underneath. That means we will have a solid line. Cool beans. Next, where will we shade? Y is greater than. Greater, bigger, up. Shade up. Okay, so first let's connect our dots. Come on, buddy. There we go. Shade up. What that means is we're going to place a dot on our y-intercept and we're going to draw an arrow going upwards. And that's going to tell us exactly where we're going to shade. If only it will let me draw. There we go. Up. Okay, so I know to shade. Oh, do you see this? It's just being rude to me. It's not just me seeing this. You guys see it. It's being recorded. Okay. We've completed our inequality. Onwards we go. Now we have inequalities. Let's practice graphing them some more. So we have some more blank graphs is what I meant to say. All right. For letter A, let's start off with thinking about the symbol. So the symbol doesn't have a solid line underneath it. So that means it's going to be dashed. It is a greater than, so that means we're going to shade up. Okay, that helps. Let's get started. The y-intercept is +3, so we're going to put a dot on +3. Now our slope is the number in front of x. What number is in front of x? It's the invisible 1, which means we're going to go up 1 to the right 1 and draw a little dot. Okay, now we can do our line and the shading. I wrote down that we're doing a dashed line, so let's draw a dashed line. And we're going to shade up. Now, some of you might be having an easy time discerning which way is up or down. I need to draw my arrows. It helps me. And if you're taking notes along with me, just do it for the notes. Okay, so I put a dot on the y-intercept, and we're going to draw an arrow pointing up. That's where I'm shading. Okay, let's do one more. Okay, letter B. Let's first analyze the symbol. Whoops. Okay, so it has a solid line underneath it. So that means our line, when we draw it, will be solid. Now, y is less than. That means we're going to shade down from the y-intercept. Okay, let's do it. We're going to put a little dot on positive 4 because that's our y-intercept. Our slope is negative 1 over 3. That means we're going down 1 and then to the right 3. Put a little dot. Okay. Now we can draw our line. I have written down solid lines, so I'm going to do my best to draw a straight line if the computer allows it. Okay, there we go. There we go. Now it says shade down. I still want to make sure to draw my arrow correctly. So I'm going to put my dot on my y-intercept and I'm going to point down. I'm going to, once it allows me to. Why are we being so mean? There we go. We're going to shade down. So now I know exactly where to shade. It's going to be in this area. And we're done with that problem. Now let's go the opposite direction. Now let's look at a graph and write the inequality. Once it loads, ha. Okay, so let's begin with letter A. Okay, there we go. So, the first thing I'm going to mark is my y-intercept. Here it is. And then I'm going to find another perfect point so I can find the slope. Okay, there we go. So, we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4 to the right 1. Okay, let's do this. We always start with the y on the left. We have a slope up 4 to the right 1 and a y-intercept of 2. Now let's decide on our symbol. First of all, will our symbol have a solid line underneath? No, it will not, because our line is dashed. So I'm going to put my pencil on a y-intercept, and I'm going to draw an arrow either up or down towards the shaded area. It looks like it's down, so y is less than. All right, let's do the same thing for letter B. First, let's draw a dot on our y-intercept. It looks like it's at negative 3. Here's another perfect point. Let's count. Up 1 to the right 2. Okay. So first I'm going to start with a y. Will our let's do the slope. The slope is up 1 to the right 2. And our y-intercept is negative 3. Okay. Now, will our symbol have a solid line underneath it? The answer is yes, because there is we see a solid line. Now let's see which direction we need to point, our arrow and our symbol. I'm going to put a dot on the y-intercept, and it looks like I'm pointing an arrow up towards the shaded area, so that means, excuse me, it's greater than. There we go. All right, last one, letter C. Let's once again mark our y-intercept. Excuse me. You see this? Do you see this? It's just not liking me today. Y-intercept and then a perfect point. Let's count for our slope. 1, 2, 1, 1. Please. Love me. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So, we start with a y. Our slope is up 3 to the right 4. Our y-intercept was negative 2. Will our symbol have a line underneath it? The answer is no, because our line on the graph is dashed, which means no solid line underneath our symbol. Let's decide which way our symbol points by putting a dot on our y-intercept and pointing an arrow towards the shaded area. It's going down, so that means it's less than. If you happen to have any questions, please feel free to ask myself or whoever's helping you out in math today. And have a wonderful rest of whatever day it is for you. Bye!